Hello, so this is the journal entry for week 14, video number 11, on authentic relating and authentic movement, or maybe it's just like relating and authentic movement. The reading for and bodyfulness for this week is chapter 6, and I am making this video after the authentic movement practice in class, to be able to tie in that experience to yeah, I feel really interested in experimenting more with authentic movement. Yeah, in class it was interesting because my energy levels were so low and I just wanted to lay, but then it was like being witnessed just laying. It was like from moment to moment, like movement wanted to come through. And just like exploring where that is like in relation to being witnessed. And then the reading of like Buddhism and authentic relating. And like yeah, it like speaks on, I don't remember what type of Buddhism it is, what sect of Buddhism, but it basically speaks about how authentic movement as a witness, you're like holding a compassionate and like all embracing attitude towards the mover, and how this can, like the weaving of Buddhism and authentic movement and like this practice of compassion for another, how that can help bring more compassion into one's own life. Yeah, and I'm usually like pretty good at giving myself compassion, um, for like what is. But yeah, it's felt a lot harder these past couple months. Um, yeah, I feel like I've been in a downward spiral for a couple months that I can't really like pull myself out of. And yeah, and there's like a lot of parts of me that I'm um not a fan of that are like present. And it's so interesting because it's so easy to give compassion to like another person, and like and witnessing Makalea in class, and yeah, there was like so much compassion for his experience, and it was interesting to see where I was observing and where I was interpreting, and where like maybe the interpretations were like projections or maybe not. um, but like to be able to have compassion for that, to then like give myself that compassion seemed helpful. And another thing I found interesting was then where it was like, even if you're like one mover and like a whole community is like holding compassion for you, this like dynamic of like if you know how to receive that compassion, and like some people are just not open to receiving that, and they can have like a completely different experience because of that. And yeah, just like interesting food for thought. This journal entry is a bit more just like all over the place, because that's just like where my energy, I guess, is at. It's very low, and yeah. Yeah, I found it really interesting. And the Bodyfulness book, where it like speaks on children who don't receive touch, how that can like actually give them brain damage. And some children can even die from the lack of touch. And yeah, it's pretty crazy. It's like a pretty intense fact there. Um, and really like highlights the importance of touch. And yeah, it's so interesting because it can be like such a sensitive topic depending on one's like childhood experience with touch. There's like another place. I don't know if I highlighted it, but yeah, it was basically just like pointing out like positive connections to touch, like um happiness and comfort. And I think it was like in the maybe in the co-regulating. Um, but then also like the negative experiences with touch, like um, control and non-consent, or I don't think either of those were like the words, but just how like, yeah, some people can more naturally connect touch to these like good things, and then we're like more like positively influencing things, and some people like can relate to touch in a very different way. um and it just like gets my mind thinking about like co-regulation through like physicality, and where like for some people like a gentle touch could be like regulatory, but maybe for another person that is like kind of does the opposite. But I think co-regulation has a lot more to do than like the physicality. I think like the state of the other person also, like it's kind of like borrowing a friend's nervous system kind of thing. um Yeah, here I have like our primary job as adults is to empower ourselves in our own regulation so that we can bring ourselves back from dysregulated states and generate our own regulated states using our body as the means. Only then can we become a positive influence for others. Yeah, I definitely feel um yeah, like I'm still learning this primary job of being an adult, of learning to regulate myself. So I'm probably not like the greatest resource for like someone to like borrow. I'm not like a nervous system that like someone would want to borrow, probably. um, yeah, and co-regulating is kind of an interesting concept to me. Yeah, there's like edges there for me. Um, yeah, another thing with co-regulating, kind of like along these lines as well, is yeah, like so often when I think co-regulating, it's like regulating, like co-helping, like get into regulation with another person. But like here, it also spoke about almost like co-dysregulation, maybe, if that's a thing. But like, yeah, like it speaks about avoiding negatives and when we can like minimize excessive complaining so that we're not pulling another down with us. Yeah, and I think like the other being pulled down, like part of that is like how well they're doing their adult job of like being regulated, um, to an extent. Um, but yeah, I guess like the comment I want to make about this is that I kind of like feel like that person recently, where I'm like so consumed in the negative. I don't really have friends anyway. I have like one friend here. Um, but it seems like I'm so like spiraled in my own shit and negativity and struggle and yeah, struggle. And I'm like looking for that co-regulation and that support. But then I find that I'm like my negativity is like so consuming of the environment, and it like makes me isolate, and I don't know, it like confirms this narrative that like I need to be alone, like people don't want to be around this, like, so let me just like be alone in my misery, and like kind of is like reconfirming these like old beliefs that like yeah make me like avoid like co-regulation, like using that as a tool. Yeah, it's a really interesting loop. Mm. Yeah, and it like speaks in here of like rewriting some of that with breath and sensing and movement and relating and yeah.